I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, July the 12th, brought to you in part by a new and exciting sponsor, Legacy Beef Co-op. Legacy Beef Co-op is an opportunity for you to invest in beef slaughter, and you can invest in your own future. The members of Legacy Beef Co-op will own 20% share of the new Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Plant, a new startup plant going up near Council Bluffs, Iowa. There's an extended video that I'm going to attach at the end of this feeder flash. It's a feeder flash feature, an interview that I did with Chad Tenninger, and this is his dream and his idea, and he's putting us all together, and he's got a team put in place that can make this a successful reality. Now, the first round of investment has already ended. They did 60,000 shares at $125 a share. Yes, each share is the right to slaughter one animal. The second round is starting up right now, and you can get in that. It's another 60,000 shares at $150 a share. And then we'll go on with some more rounds with more units, but eventually going to be selling out all 520,000 shares. And it's set up similar to some of the plants that you've known that have producer investment. But check out this video that was put together by Eric Grant, a Grant company there. They do a great job with videos. I've known Eric for many years. He actually helped me do my first video market reports when he was with the American Angus Association, and he's kind of a trickster. And if you notice, he did some fancy video work to make me look much fatter than I am in real life. And that's a dirty trick that he played on me, but it's either I scoot back from the table and do more physical activity or blame Eric, and I'm going to blame Eric. So check out this video about Legacy Beef Co-op. Watch the whole thing, and it's going to give you a lot of information about something that you may want to invest in. Also, Union Livestock Market and Creston Livestock Market are now going to be our Friday sponsors for auction markets. Kurt and Heather Sport Leader, I've known them for a long time. They've got two really good markets. Cody Fry is half invested in the Creston market just up there in the edge of Iowa, the southern end of Iowa there. That was Tom Fry's barn at one time, but his son Cody is in there. And Kurt and Heather Sport Leader, they do a great job marketing cattle. We're going to be talking about some of their featured consignments each week whenever we touch about them on Fridays. But we're glad to have Unionville Livestock Market in Unionville, Missouri, and Creston Livestock Market in what Tom Fry used to call Creston, America. Still standing. I tell you what, the market, it looked like early to midweek that we were really going to take a hit. And we did take a hit, but it was just on the futures for the most part. So hit me with your best shot. And the board did. It was down to open the week on Monday, and then they dogpiled the thing on Tuesday. Wednesday it was down and then came back up a little bit, but still closed lower. And then on Thursday we saw some plus signs on your cattle futures there. But it didn't knock us completely off the pedestal. After 7 weeks of higher fed cattle prices, I think we could stand a week here and a week there where we were steady to slightly lower, and that's what we were this last week here. But you know, we've 3 days in a row with a big loss on Tuesday. That's a bunch to take. That $2 threshold, we had been talking about that here all the way during this rally as the market was going up, and I even doubted that we would see $2 fat cattle, and I said we wouldn't see $2 fat cattle in the Southern Plains, and we haven't even gotten close to it in the Southern Plains, but we have touched it in the Northern Plains, $2, and that's been the top of the spread the last couple of weeks here, and guys still wanted $2 this past week. Don't know of anybody that quite got it, but they got really close. So, you know, the market fell back just a little bit. Who's to say that it won't make another run here in the short term? I keep talking to these guys that are trying to put slaughter cows together, and they say we haven't seen nothing about high prices on slaughter cows. We've got competitive bidding from our cow and bull slaughter plants. They go into the sale barns. That's where they get the bulk of their supplies. and when they're in there, they have to bid against other plants that want them too. It brings about high prices. It brings about bulls, big old slaughter bulls that are bringing more than our fat cattle have ever reached, over $2 a pound. And we've got cows that are bringing up close to what our slaughter steers and heifers are bringing, if you figure in the difference in the dressing percentage there. But I tell you what, we're still holding strong. We haven't given up on this market. I'm really proud and encouraged by the cash sellers in the northern plains. Those guys, the tougher it gets, the tougher they get. And I talk to a lot of them every week, and then they're just demanding these bigger prices. They're not nervous about the cattle getting backed up on them, because they know that these packers like them just as good at 16 or 1700 pounds as they do at 1400. So what the heck? Cattle are gaining their heads off. Southern plains, we just don't have much negotiation down there. And of course, this week they got scared early in the week and started puking the cattle $2 lower. That's the most lower that we saw cash-fed cattle sell, was $2 lower. And that's what happens when you don't hold, dig your heels in, and try harder, and you have to ask for higher prices before you can get them, guys. But talk about the way to protect yourself as we're starting. We've been at this high mark here for a while. Everybody thinks it's going to last a couple, 3 years. I think that it has the ability to do that, but as I was talking to an older fella that's been through these rallies and these wrecks many times down at San Marcos, Texas, at the Independent Cattlemen's Association of Texas convention down there, he said, "You know how long this deal's going to last?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Not quite as long as everybody thinks. That the crash is going to come quicker than everybody thinks. All your traders, your speculators, especially on your futures market, they're just slobbering at the mouth, waiting to break this market so they can ride it down. They'll have just as much fun riding it down as they did riding it up." And a producer, he's got to have a real price for what he's producing out there. But you need some protection. Way to do that: Livestock Risk Services. Dakota Moss there at the Oklahoma National Stockyards Exchange Building in Oklahoma City, and he's got a lot of agents that work with him, guys. And if we're getting there close, we're kind of out over our skis a little bit. Yes, fundamentally this thing should last another 2 or 3 years, but you've got to protect yourself. You absolutely got to protect yourself. We see how fast these big futures target prices can fall. Reach out and grab something that you can live with, that you're happy with. Get you an LRP on them and protect yourself, guys. For more information, you need to check them out at livestockriskservices.com. Let's talk about your board. And it was friendly for a change on Thursday. August live cattle futures were just unchanged. I guess they're happy with 182 1/4, which is about $15 back of our last established negotiated fat cattle sales are average in your 5-area feeding region. And the live cattle contract is just a joke. October live cattle futures up just 30 cents at 183.50. Your back months up 12 to up 47. August feeder cattle up 180 at 256.15. The CME cash feeder cattle index came out with help from Bassett Livestock Auction and gained about $3.50 there. And then they thought, well, maybe we're overdoing it a little bit too much. Maybe there is still some value in these feeder cattle that the people that are feeding them can't wait to get their hands on. September feeder cattle up 177 at 256.35. Your back month's up 45 cents to up 130. Corn was up 3.5 cents a bushel on Thursday at 406 3/4. Beans up 1.5 cents at 1142 3/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat, it's a yo-yo, has been for years here. On Thursday up 18 1/4 cents a bushel at 591 1/4. Your fat cattle trade had a little more trade on Thursday. Iowa sold 6,100. They've sold 19,700 for the week. The live prices on Thursday 195 to 198.5. We did have 199. I talked to several guys that got 199 on Wednesday late. Some dress trade on Thursday at 312 dressed. Nebraska, 4,100 head sold on Thursday, confirmed 14,800 for the week. One price in Nebraska, and that was 198, which was a lot to be steady. There was a lot of cattle that sold 198 the previous week too. Dress sales 312 to 315. That's all we had last week. That's steady. Kansas, 200 head was all they had confirmed on Thursday, but they had sold 10,300 for the week. Pretty significant sales on Wednesday late at the 188, but the only price we saw in Kansas was 191, negotiated live price, and I'm sure that was up in northern Kansas, and we've seen more and more of that falling up into the northern plains market there. Did have a few 192 on Wednesday after the 2 o'clock deadline to get that information in. So some of those guys are starting to get a little bit more money for their better cattle that aren't too many miles from the Nebraska border. Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Thursday. They sold 7,400 for the week. Pretty much everything at 188, which is $2 lower. Fat cattle auction that we didn't talk about on our last visit, but on Wednesday, Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota, had a big fat cattle auction. They had over 1,000 head, like 1,050 head of slaughter cattle at Sioux Falls Regional in Worthing, South Dakota. Their DVAuction broadcaster. Get on and check them out sometime. Compared to 2 weeks ago, the fat cattle in Worthing sold $4 to $5 higher. Conventional and premium type cattle in Sioux Falls Regional and Worthing sold from 199.5 to 206, and it'd be in smaller groups. Some of them probably not as fancy as some of the direct sales, but they're getting competition. They got people bidding against each other, and that's the only way you can find out what something's worth, guys. How about your box beef cutout values? They continue to fall. Choice cuts down $2.40 at $321.65. The select's down 56 cents at 303.38. Slaughter information through Thursday, 476,000. Can't compare with last week because of 4th of July, but it was still 28,000 less than the same week a year ago. I don't know how much longer that these steer and heifer plants can back off their slaughter, because they're having to make up ground for the lack of slaughter cows, and that's the biggest part of our lack of slaughter is slaughter cows. But these steer and heifer plants, they're wanting to tighten the chain speeds down a little bit. You know, maybe they need to learn on their beef sales from the northern plains cattle sellers that, you know, maybe just hold still a little bit and make those wholesale buyers give a little bit more money for that meat. Actual slaughter information come back for the week ending June the 29th. Had your average dressed steer carcass weight at 911 pounds, starting to ease up a little bit. That's 2 pounds lighter than the previous report, but still 27 pounds bigger than the same report a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Farapiece, that's the revolutionary product that's scientifically proven. We talk about them all the time on here. I've gotten to be pretty good friends with Dr. Rodrigo that has developed this. He lives down in the Texas A&M Bryan College Station area. He's built a new manufacturing plant to keep up with demand down there. You know, I've told you about what it can do when you're weaning cattle, when you're moving cattle. A lot of people are even giving it on cattle when they're sending them into slaughter, and you're saying, oh, come on, they're not running them through the chute right before they load them to go to the plant. They are, and it's pretty much eliminated the dark cutters, guys. I mean, I don't know how much more I can tell you about it, but at $3 a dose, you can't afford not to try it. Check them out at fairpiece.com. Talk about our feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states, just like your CME feeder cattle index. Late in the day on Thursday, 259.37, down 107 from that big shoot up that we saw after Wednesday's sales. CME cash feeder cattle index always running at least a day behind. They're just now realizing that big upshoot from the Bassett barbecue special, and they were 261.53, your latest available there. Coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Excited about being a judge here at the International Livestock Auctioneer Championship. They've got a lot of great competitors there. In fact, Paul Ramirez, you remember him. He was a champion of this contest back in 2009. He's got his young daughter competing in this ILAC contest, and I'm excited to see how she performs, guys. But let's talk about your big sales on Thursday. Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas wasn't a huge sale, but they had 2,400 head. Both Dodge City and Pratt have kind of just been on hold here for the last several weeks, of course with the holiday and everything, but kind of preparing for the King of the Ring specials that are going to be coming up here in 2 weeks. There'll be specials in Dodge City and in Pratt, so you guys can get ready for those. No recent test on the market that they had in Pratt, but I saw some pretty impressive steers sell there. 65 steers weighed 836 and bring 264 in Pratt, Kansas. How about Farmers and Ranchers Livestock? They had 2,500, and this is the first sale they've had in several weeks with a wheat harvest shutdown there. But they had a nice sale, including 58 steers weighed 893 at 252. Just a lot of cattle moving around the major grazing areas of the Osage and the Flint Hills up through Oklahoma and Kansas, neighboring areas, seeing a lot of those green yearlings move it out of there. And the feedlots want them so bad. Those are the best feeding cattle in the whole world. They will absolutely gain their heads off, guys. Some other quotes from all around the circuit. How about Bluegrass Stockyards South in Stanford, Kentucky? DVAuction is proud to broadcast all your bluegrass locations. Stanford, usually late in the week there, has amazing load lot sales on yearlings. They did again on Thursday. 62 steers weighed 885 in Stanford, Kentucky, and bring 259. Wow. How about Woodward Livestock Auction, another DVAuction broadcaster there. Seth Hale running that market. They had a good sale on Thursday, including 50 steers weighed 861 at 258.50 in western Oklahoma. How about Enid Livestock Market in Enid, Oklahoma? Dakota Davis, they're another customer at DVAuction, broadcasting their sale every week there. Dakota Davis had a good sale on Thursday, including 103 steers weighed 834 at 261.50. They'll bring it, guys, in the sales if you can't get them sold in the country. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of Fairview, Illinois sale barn. They do not do any business with DVAuction, but we would love to get a call from them and come out there and set them up. The McClure steers, and he gets the top quote a lot of times when they have the big specials, but sold 63 steers, weighed 902 at 266 in Illinois. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.
I'm Corbett Wall with this feeder flash feature. I'm here with Chad Tinninger from Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage, and we're going to give you some information about getting in on the ground floor of a co-op that's going to own part of Cattlemen's Heritage, a new privately owned packing plant. Hopefully we'll give you an opportunity to stay profitable and stay in the cattle feeding business and compete with the big four packers. How you doing today, Chad?
Good, Corbett. Glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about this new and exciting venture that you've got going?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we started out, Legacy Co-op is a outshoot of Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company, the new processing plant outside of Council Bluffs. That'll be 525,000 head a year. We'll be processing right outside of Council Bluffs off of the I-29 corridor over there. We got about 132 acres. We've cleared the land. We're ready to break ground next spring. And Legacy Co-op will be the supply of the cattle that will feed that plant with the producer involvement.
Okay, so all the cattle that come into that plant will be through Legacy Co-op.
That is the goal, yes. We want to make sure that the producer has a say in how the plant's run, the say in how the market works. All these things that we as producers, when I put my producer cap on, I want to get the best value for my cattle. Well, I don't think there's any way I can ever get the best value for my cattle if I don't participate in the processing end of it, because obviously in the last decade we've seen very clearly that the only way we're ever going to get what we think we deserve is to actually participate in the ownership.
Okay, so you say these co-op members are going to have a say in what goes on at the plant. How's that going to work?
So how we've set up the co-op is it's buying shares. One share is one delivery obligation a year. So there's 525,000 shares up for sale. Once you deliver your cattle, what you're going to gain in the beginning is you're going to get access to a grid. Everybody knows how grid works, premiums and discounts. But our grid's going to be tied to the box beef cutout. We are not going to tie it to the CME. We fundamentally believe that the CME does not represent the cattle fundamentals in the country on a day-to-day basis. I think we could all agree to that. There's no traders in the pits anymore. There's no human contact. It's computer algorithms trading on headlines, and we're at the mercy of it. So beginning, the fundamental belief is let's tie it to the box beef cutout. At least then we know we got a fair shake. You also, if you're a member of the co-op, you get a $25 bonus every time you deliver. So automatically it's $25 more than you would have got anywhere else. And then at the end of the day, for buying into the co-op, that co-op is going to have roughly, give or take, 20% ownership in Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company. So true ownership in the plant, in the company, in the brand, whatever we can create out of this, you have ownership in and get a margin in those profits.
So these unit shares, you assume they're going to gain in value as time goes on.
Every other company that we've looked at like this in the pork industry, there's more of these companies with producer involvement. All those shares just increase in value. You can sell them, you can, your kids can inherit them, pass it down, but ultimately you have a say in how the system works that you're participating in.
So you're offering producers an opportunity to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah, I've been in this business my whole life, and we as producers, my whole life we've been saying, we don't have any say in how we sell our product, what comes from it, we're at the mercy of everybody. This is an opportunity to be in the ground floor at the cheapest you're going to get in to actually take ownership in a company that you'll participate in. We've set it up. The Cattlemen's Heritage will have its own board. The co-op will have its own board. They will work together hand in hand in an advisory board. Each board will have two members of the other. So we have true ownership in the game. So when we talk about how are we going to sell cattle or how's the grid going to work exactly, you're going to have a seat at the table with us deciding those very things.
So the plan itself, you're expecting to pretty much run on a consistent margin then, and then the extra money is going to be premiums for the producer?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple system. You tie a grid to a set point. We're going to tie it to the box beef cutout. Then you have to plant production. You can't break the plant, right? It costs X amount to run. You minus that out, and then you start on quality of cattle. You're still going to be paid for quality cattle on a premium discount basis. That would be very similar to how grid works today. One thing we are looking at pretty closely that we might change, especially when you get discounts on 4s and 5s. Right. In today's world, in reality, there's not really much of a discount on a 4. And what's coming up that a lot of people probably don't realize, but 45Z, it's a huge tax credit that's coming on the tax code for anything biofuels. That's what all the ethanol industry is doing. That's what they're talking about. That's why they're paying you. Well, our fats and tallows in the cattle are worth gold right now going to the biodiesel. And we're not getting a part of that. And there's going to be yet another revenue stream that we won't see. So, when you start adding up all the value adds that we as producers do, that we don't participate in, at a certain point in time, all of us producers are just saying, I'm doing the most I will do to create value that I don't get to participate in.
So we talked about the cattle. What kind of cattle are you looking for?
We're just really looking for northern western genetics, right? That's going to be the cattle. The kind of cattle we feed where we are. If you put a pin in Council Bluffs, that's where the plant will be. You go 300 miles in any direction, that's a lot of high quality cattle. And so we're not going to limit it to just black hided or anything like that. It'll be just all quality cattle because the system's still set up. You deliver quality, you'll make more money.
Okay, so no particular program. Yeah. It's just where you're at on the globe, that's the kind of cattle you want.
That's exactly right.
Type cattle.
Yeah, and the system will work that if somebody thinks they're going to deliver really bad cattle, the negatives will still be there. Yeah. So it doesn't work. It still functions the same. And within that, over time, again, will there be programs that maybe develop like anything does? There could be. If there's more value at the end, of course, why wouldn't we bring it back into the plant? And then again, the co-op will own 20% of the plant, so it's a true dividend at the end of the year.
So are you looking at Cattlemen's Heritage having a retail label?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the end goal is create a brand. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the last 3 years. We're 3 years into due diligence of this plant. That's why we're so confident in where we are today. What we've discovered is the cattle industry has done the worst job ever of telling its story of its greatest asset, and that's the farmers and ranchers and producers. We have all these amazing men and women working every day in this industry. We don't tell their story.
Right.
You know, so we're going to tell the story. Our marketing is going to be, you know, look at these family farmers, look at the ranchers, look at what they do every day. When they don't do a good job, they lose farms. They lose their livelihood. So you better believe if anything in the world of doing the best quality for what you're putting on your kitchen table, it comes out of our farmers and ranchers.
How are you going to compete with the big four?
So there's a couple ways. We have done 3 years of due diligence to figure out why plants don't work when they don't work. What causes a failure, right? Undercapitalized, we have the capital. Bad location, that I cannot overstate having a bad location. We're outside of Council Bluffs, there's 1 million people right outside that door. So we have plenty of work. The other thing we look at is, how do you compete? That's the question, right? How do you compete? Well, the co-op will be a supply of cattle. That's a bunch of producers that have signed up to deliver cattle because they want to share in the upside profits. So on the front side, you can't outbid the cattle. Those cattle are already committed. They're coming in, and they're committed because they're going to get rewarded better. Mm-hmm. So we know we'll have the cattle supply coming into the plant. Then selling the beef, what we found over the last 3 years is, as frustrated as we get as producers that we can only really sell to a handful of companies, on the retail side, there's a lot of frustration on that end too, that they only get to buy from a couple of companies. So we've been contacted by over 80 companies to buy beef today.
But at this point, you haven't gone into partnership with any prospective customers.
We haven't yet, but we're finalizing some of that. We will have a major partner on offer.
I think you need to.
And we will. We're working through that. So what we wanted to make sure is, A, do we have the capital to build? Can we build the right plant, a highly efficient plant? Are we in the right location? Once we cleared all those hurdles, that's a big part of what a retailer, an end user wants to know too.
Sure.
Do you guys have all your ducks in a row so when we're ready to buy meat? So before we break ground, we'll have a major partner signed up to buy the product. Another way that we've done that we feel is really important is, these old plants, they're old, they're tired, they're inefficient. They started by, you know, processing 2,000 head a day, they're doing 5,000 head a day.
Right.
And, you know, there's plants in this country that, you know, if you built them today, might have 2 forklifts and they got 36 running around that plant, things like that. The way we've designed it with new technology, proven technology, our technology came out of Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. And the reason we're doing that is they hit their labor issues 20 years before we did. So in a world where labor's tight, especially in this industry, you got to be as efficient as you can. We will process 2,000 head a day. A typical plant takes 1,200 employees to do that. We'll have 800.
Wow.
400 less employees. That translates to $25 million a year in savings to the plant, which transfers $50 a head cheaper production cost. So our plant will operate at a cheaper per head production cost than any plant in the system. Wow. And that's where you get the margin. So when you start thinking about how they're going to squeeze you out, well, they'd have to start losing $100 a head where we start breaking even. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of this that we looked at. Again, it's not that complicated to say, I'm going to go build a plant and then just go throw one up somewhere. What's complicated is to be successful.
Right. And I assume you've got your team pretty well set, because you've got to have people that have experience in this kind of stuff, because it's a tough business.
Yeah, we get asked that a lot, and that's a really important question. And I make sure everybody knows today, I'm the head of the company. I will not be running a plant. That is not my expertise. I've never claimed to be that guy. But what we will do is, the beauty of what's happening in the system is, because there's just a few companies that really have the top guys out there, mm-hmm. A lot of people retire 56 to 60 out of that world, and there's a lot of people, they're not even close to done. Right. There is so much talent in this space that's there to available. We've identified it. We've hired advisors from day one. So I have an advisor that his entire job is just to identify that talent and make sure that when we open our doors, we have the right talent in place. Because there's another way. If you want to fail, just don't put the team together. You know, try and save money on your management team. That's a great way to fail.
So, you know, we're looking for some new co-op members. And how much risk do you think there is involved in this?
What we've done is we went 2.5 years and we talked to producers and got all their point of views and heard every comment we could talk about. And at the end of the day, we developed this program we're in today. And this is the final program we're going out. So what it is, there's various stages of the co-op membership. You are rewarded to get in early. The first round, there's 5 rounds. The first round is $125 a unit. It goes up $25 every round. It's split pretty evenly through the rounds. So That's not a huge investment in the cattle world today.
No, that's especially the prices we're at now.
The way it is today. How it works is right now it's $25 down. So if you want to buy a unit today, it's $25 down.
Okay.
That holds your spot. Then we're going to come out in end of the year, right at the end of the year with the final, here's your final agreement, sign up. If you decide at that point in time, you know what, something's changed, I don't want in on this, we'll refund $15. We got to keep 10 because we spent 10 to put the system together. So all you're really putting at risk today is 10 bucks. 10 bucks a unit. And if you don't like it at the end, your 15 comes home. If you do like it at the end, before we break ground, roughly 30 days before we break ground, the balance of it will be owed. We made it as simple as we could. To be honest, when we first started this, I was hoping to have the producers own 60, 70% of this. Mm-hmm. We found there's not a lot of appetite for that because then you're talking $500, $600, $700 a unit. Mm-hmm. I understand that. That's a lot of money.
Well, it sounds to me like you're not really looking at this co-op to give the bulk of your capital to build this plant.
Absolutely not.
You're ready to build the plant. You're just giving folks opportunity to get into the supply of the cattle.
The plant's going to get built no matter what, because what we've done in 2.5 years is we've found the debt, we found the equity, we're working on all these pieces of the pie. We've got the MPAP award from the USDA, which is the largest, the $25 million you can get from that to build more packing industry, right? So we've been working on all these pieces. At the end of the day, the $100 million, roughly, if you sell 520,000 units, that's come from producers, but that's a $500 million plant. So that's where you get your 20% ownership, give or take. It's a true equity play. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's the passion of it. The producers need to get involved so we have the final say in the outcome also. Anybody that's in the cattle industry should be in this. And I tell bankers, I'm talking to a lot of bankers, there's not a cattle feeder that I know that shouldn't take this opportunity. When you think about what it costs, if you return $25 a head just on, once a year, it gets one space, but that's 5 years, your initial investment's back just off of that, and then you've risked nothing.
Right.
It's a low risk maneuver that opens up a top end. So we did a lot of data mining to find out how the math works. In the last decade, if you just take an average of how the industry has worked in the past, box beef versus what an average would be is about 61.3% of the box beef cutout is where the industry has averaged in the past. In fact, from 04 to 13, that was exactly what it averaged, 61.3. If you take that same number, extend it to today for the last 10 years, you'll find between what we sold our cattle for and what the packer had at 61.3, there's $206 on every animal of a margin that we didn't participate in. So I've heard a big pushback I've had is, well, if you're going to give the producer all the money, the pack goes broke. Well, I'm here to tell you, the numbers don't lie. You can do the data mining yourself and figure it out. There's $206 on every head we sold in the last decade on average that we didn't participate in that margin. I'm not saying it's all ours as producers. I'm just saying there's a buffer there that certainly there's a middle ground we should all partake in.
Right, right.
We've been told our whole lives, you do it our way or you don't get paid at all. Now we're sitting here saying, if you do it, if we create more value, we're going to pay you for it.
Well, Chad, thanks for all the information here about Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage. If folks are interested in making an investment or finding out more about this, where should they go?
Best place to go would be go to legacybeefcoop.com or cattlemensheritage.com. Either one will give you a link to go here to get the information.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the information today and enjoyed the visit.
Thank you.